So here we are on what is proven to be a fine Sunday morning, knowing that Manchester United have won a game of football. I wish this stupid little game did not affect our mood so much as it does, but here we are, okay? And also, it was just a matter of the fact that we've won a game in a situation which almost was beginning to prove untenable for the manager and maybe some of these players. So we needed to see something. And in my opinion, we saw a couple of things that I thought were little tweaks from the manager, like good tweaks from the players as well. So there's a lot really to be happy about after that game. I was there. And I think this is a thing. Like this season, I was at the Arsenal game where we lost, but we played well. I was at the Chelsea game, which we won. And I was at this game. So maybe I should go to more games. Do you know what I mean? But no, this was going into it. I felt a certain way about how much we needed a result. I felt a certain way about what players I thought should play, what players I thought should be dropped, and I also felt a kind of way about the starting lineup, but I'm feeling a definite kind of way about how the game panned out. And there's a couple of players I want to highlight. You could tell by the title and the thumbnail who I want to highlight the most. But before we get into it, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you are new. We are so close to that magic 10k. We are so close, so make sure you subscribe as much as you can. You like the video, you share it around, because this is the non-toxic Manchester United community, the home of healthy and wholesome football discussions. So we're not going to go into the toxic crap that you see elsewhere. We want to make sure that this is the healthiest and most thriving platform for Manchester United fans in the world. So if you want to be a part of that, subscribe, like, drop a comment, because I do read and respond to every single one. Now, Manchester United versus Sunderland. So going into it, we knew we needed to win. I mean, Man United's a club where you kind of have to win most games, but especially for where we are, we wanted to be able to look back, going into the international break, look back over the first 8 or so games and be like, okay, what did we expect out of the team we were given, and what we were like kind of expecting just in terms of our expectations. What a stupid phrase, but you know what I mean, like kind of what our lowest expectations were for getting the amount of points, what we actually thought when we could sit back in hindsight and look at the performance levels, where we could see the dips, where we could see the peaks, and which one was going to be the anomaly. Because I think under Ruben Amorim, being honest, like across the 11 or 12 months that he's been here, we look at some of the better performances as the anomalies, in my opinion. Like, it's rare to find a great Ruben Amorim performance than a bad one. So we needed to know this season, which one are we seeing more of? And these last 4 games, you had Chelsea, you had Brentford, you had City, and you had Sunderland. And in my opinion, it's a 2v2. 2 good performances versus 2 bad ones. And the bad ones were very bad, and the good ones were good. So we're still kind of not balancing things in the right way, in my opinion. But I'm hoping that after this Sunderland game, we saw a couple of tweaks in how we were playing that made me think, okay, maybe we're trying a couple of new things out. First of all, some of the negatives I guess we'll point out first before we get on to the main positives. The Bruno in midfield just doesn't work. And I'm tired of having to say that. I'm tired of Ruben Amorim not seeing that, because Bruno had another bad game, and it was actually a good opportunity to lay down a marker with the rest of the team, because he's shown with the likes of Lenny Yoro or any other players like that, that he will lay down the gauntlet. Like, if you're not playing well, or if you're not adhering to the system, if you're not a part of his plans, you'll get dropped. So I don't mind that as an idea, but you've got to let that apply to every player in the squad, because as soon as you start to show that a player is indispensable, then that's how they're going to play. And I think Bruno Fernandes has been poor over the last 2 games. He was good in the Chelsea game, but I think he was poor for the last 2. I thought he was terrible in the derby. I thought he was terrible also in almost every game except the Burnley game in the previous Premier League matches. So I've not been impressed with him at all. And I think he's riding the coattails of being Bruno Fernandes and being the type of player that can change things. And that's why he keeps on playing, because he is not positionally disciplined enough to play in a midfield too. He isn't. And that's not really a slight on him, because a lot of players aren't. I don't think if you played Cole Palmer in the midfield too, that he'll give you much either. So I just don't think we're utilising him to his best. But then when he started playing further forward in the game, we actually saw a little bit more from him. But overall, I think he has been poor, and I think it's a time to drop him, especially when we're playing against Sunderland, a Sunderland team that didn't cause us any problems, really. Like, we snuffed out a lot of their attacks, but they didn't really... I was surprised at how poor they were, really. But in terms of the industry and the attack and what they were trying to do, we matched them quite a lot of the time, which was nice to see. Like, man for man, we actually matched them, but it is still Sunderland, so I'm not going to, with respect to them, it's a newly promoted team, I'm not going to get overly excited about that. But Enzo Lefebvre, for example, there was a clear, decisive point at which we've probably looked at him and said, you're their best threat, and we're going to neutralise you. And that's exactly what we did. Casemiro neutralised Enzo Lefebvre, and I also think their attacking like qualities. Like Isidore was marked out the game by Matthijs De Ligt, who I thought had another fantastic game. Elias Maende didn't do anything as soon as he came on, and we played a really good game against them. So overall, I can be happy about that. But I do wish that Ruben would just use those principles of if you're not good enough, you're dropped across the back line, because I know he might have got a throw in that was can count as a half assist, but Diogo Dalot's been horrible for the last few games, and it's not like Diogo Dalot. I think he has some qualities, but this system will, especially if you're not used to it, which these players aren't, this system, what we can guarantee about it is that it's going to highlight your flaws a lot quicker than it's going to highlight some of your positives. So, Brian Mbeumo is loving life. Ahmad is loving life right now, but Diogo Dalot was struggling, and I think it's a case of trial him out maybe in one of the back three because he's got the athleticism about him. But even then, I don't trust his positional discipline, and I don't trust his timing. I don't trust his footballing IQ, if I'm honest. I think this system, you do need smarter players, and with the greatest respect to Dalot, I don't think he has an insanely high football IQ. And when it comes to the physical element, he is quite a physical player, he's athletic, but I'm yet to find out what his key component is, what his best thing is. Is he a good crosser of the ball? I don't think so. Is he great at linking up? Is he great at dribbling? I'm struggling. I don't know what his key thing is. And for him to start so many games and play so many games, you would imagine that Ruben is seeing something that it has that quality. But for him and Bruno to finish that game, they didn't finish it, but for him and Bruno to play as much of the game as they did, that worries me. Because, like I say, apply that same hard-nosed mentality to everyone in the squad, no matter who they are or no matter what their overall presence is in the dressing room or what their status is in the football club. But on to the more positives. I mean, I think Matthijs De Ligt is someone who's definitely gone under the radar this season. For me, he has been our player of the season so far. He has been absolutely brilliant because everyone talked about him coming in from Bayern, that he was on the way down. When you look at the stats and you look at how he's played, he's gone maybe not like that since he moved to Juventus and Bayern, but definitely like that. And then they thought he dipped last season, but the whole club dipped last season. He has been someone who has definitely shone this season. I think he's been brilliant. And the game against Brentford, I mean, we see that the central centre-back role for Matthijs De Ligt is where he shines. So play him there. The minute you brought in Harry Maguire and you moved him over to the right, he was exposed because he has to make up for an Ahmad who wasn't really going to track back. So, not an Ahmad, sorry, but when we had Dalot there. So you do want him to be in his best roles, and you have to play the players in their best roles, which I think has been a bit of a crux for Ruben Amorim. I don't think he's been very good at that. But keep playing him in that centre-back role, and we're going to be quite happy with him. I do intend to do a bit of a deeper dive into Matthijs De Ligt because I think he's been fantastic and overlooked. And yeah, like I say, my player of the season so far. And the attacking link-up, between Ahmad and Mbeumo, I thought was really solid. Really happy with them too. Ahmad had a new lease of life in that game. He just got the ball and drove. That's what you want. And they couldn't handle Mbeumo and Ahmad. And the only thing I'm a little bit disappointed with, if I can use that word, is that about 40 minutes into the game, both of their left-sided centre-back and the left-back were both booked. So if I'm Ruben, I'm like, just give it to them as much as possible and keep running at them. Force them into a change, which they did, I think, in the 70th minute. And in the second half, we didn't really offer anything, probably just to contain and just to relax and manage the game, which I think we did very well. But then, I don't know, I'm a fan. I want to see more goals. I want to see more impetus. And Ahmad wanted a goal. So did Mbeumo. So I think we should have done a bit more there. And Seshko, I thought was very good as well. The overall link-up play, the overall kind of intensity of his play. He is leaps and bounds ahead of Højlund in terms of that overall centre-forward play. Now he's got 2 goals in 2 games. Good stuff. And that is good for him. So good to see him get off the mark, especially at Old Trafford at the Stretford end. And frankly, we cannot go the rest of this day without talking about 2 players. And one of them is Mason Mount, who I thought has been very, very good. I know he came off a bit early in the game, and he is still struggling with injuries even early in this season. But 1 game a week will probably suit him down to a T. I'm struggling to get the fee and everything out of my head when it comes to him, which is very unfair, to be honest. But it is a struggle that I can't really get out of my head, and we do need to see more return for the amount of money that we've paid. But I think we are going into this era now under Ineos of high-value signings, none more so than Senne Lammens. I told you so many times how much I wanted this guy to start, because not just because Bayindir has been really poor, but because this is exactly the type of recruitment we should be doing, because It's not just about get a big name, see who's been playing well and go for him. Look at the data, look at the stats. This is modern football. Look at the data, look at the stats, and ascertain who are the highest value propositions in the transfer market. And to go and get the player with the most saves in Europe and at one of the highest save percentages, and someone who has just been growing and growing while he's been a mainstay at his club, go and get him. Take a chance. 20 million euros or 24 million euros, whatever it was, is taking a chance, but it's a calculated risk. Because if it doesn't work out, it's not a huge investment for our standards. So we've gone and got him, and I thought the game against Brentford would have been a good one to start him, but frankly, Ruben got the entire defence wrong that day. He got the entire selection wrong, really. So, not overly annoyed that he didn't play that game, but this game was the one where I said Lammens has to play. And the minute he does, you see a goalkeeper that just goes back to being a goalkeeper. I think, and this is, I want to be fair enough to the hierarchy or fair enough to the decision makers at the time, because the game was going into a more modern world. And I think David De Gea at the time made so many of those silly errors that you think you do need a goalkeeper that is more modern, because that's where the game was going. The game has almost regressed a little bit now. You're seeing long throws a lot of the time. You're seeing playing for set pieces. You're seeing a lot of counter attacks. You're seeing a lot of going up to a big striker, doing flick-ons. We're kind of going back to an era which I kind of like, to be honest. But as a goalkeeper, the modern goalkeeper is almost a bit of a crux. You want someone who's going to command their area, who's big, who's, in charge of their box, in charge of their yard line, and you just want them to be a goalkeeper. So the game has regressed a little bit, and I don't think it's in a negative way, but I don't think we were wrong to make that forward step. I just think we chose the wrong guy, and that happens, but we still chose a Champions League finalist goalkeeper who had a great season at the highest level. So it wasn't a terrible choice to go for him. It turned out to be a terrible choice. So I'm always when it comes to transfers, I always think what was it at the time? It could have turned out to be a bad decision. That happens. That's football. But was it a bad decision when they made it? That's when I think we have to be fair to people making those decisions. Because, I think at the time when Louis van Gaal was brought in as our manager, I actually thought with the pedigree, with what he had, working with young players, that was actually a good appointment, but it didn't work out for various reasons. So it doesn't mean it was a bad choice. You can't just say you shouldn't have made that choice at the time, because at the time, actually, it was quite calculated. But this Senne Lammens choice is very calculated. This Senne Lammens choice is just a young goalkeeper who has a very good grasp of the fundamentals. And it says a lot about what we've had to go through as fans over the last 2 to 3 years, where he comes out, claims a cross, and we're cheering that almost as loudly as we're cheering a goal going in. Because that calmness, it permeated the entire backline. I've said so many times with Bayindir and Onana that their negativity and their haphazard way of being a goalkeeper, it does permeate the backline, and it does affect them, because then they have to overcompensate, thinking that they can't rely on the guy behind them. But the one-on-one chance that Sunderland created, it was straight at Lammens, to be fair, but he made himself big, got low, and I was so accustomed to what Onana and Bayindir bring. I was just assuming the ball would squirm under him. Nothing. He made it look it wasn't even barely on the ground, and he stood on his line at the right time. And these sorts of things are good. And Tony Cotton, he said this very good thing about when Tim Howard was goalkeeper, and that's immediately what I thought when I saw that save on the one-on-one. I'm not going to overanalyze it, because it is just one save, but the fact that he stayed on his line, it gave him the option to parry, to hold, and give him a few more options. If you just come out, then you only have one option, which is to block. He didn't do that. So that's why I keep seeing Bayern doing. It's what I kept seeing Onana do. And it was just nice to see him in there. But ultimately, I thought his distribution was solid. I thought his command of the back line was good. I thought he organised the team well, especially on set pieces. All these long throws, that they've got a long throw specialist in Mukiele, didn't do anything. Corners, no real threat at all. And I thought he was very good. So I'm very happy with the way that Lammens played. And I think this is a bit of a key moment for Amorim now, because we're going into this international break, and we all knew what could have happened had we not won this game. It could have gotten really bad for him, but ultimately it's a win. It's a win that takes us, into the top half of the table. But we have played City, we have played Chelsea, we've played Arsenal, we're going to play Liverpool, which I don't think will go very well. But yeah, I think it was good, and I don't think Lammens is going to go on an international break with Belgium. I could be wrong about that, but it'll be nice to get him just a bit more time with the coaching staff, and to get a bit more time with the defenders who are staying. And I think De Ligt might stay, which I think is outrageous. But you know what? The more that these players work together, the better it will be. So overall, I'm happy with the win. I'm happy with the intent behind it, but more happy that finally this goalkeeper that, yes, I didn't know much about him until the summer, but I did watch a lot of him. I did read up a lot about him. Doesn't make me an expert on him or goalkeeping. It's just the area of the pitch that I like to analyse most. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt calm with my goalkeeper at the back. That hasn't happened in a long time, and I think we've been starved of that for a long time. And I could get used to life with Senne Lammens at the back. So, yeah, that is the video for today. I wanted to focus on those players in particular. Let me know who you thought had a very good game, if I'm missing anyone, and what you're thinking also about the game against Liverpool. Like I say, you get into the comments. I do read and respond to every single one. Thank you for the support. Subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you on the next video.